The first thing I noticed when I entered the bedroom wasn't the absence of my husband, it was the crisp white envelope placed meticulously in the center of our king-sized bed. My name, Olivia Harrington, was written in Marcus's precise handwriting across the front. I could count on one hand the number of times Marcus had written me anything by hand in our 3 years of marriage. A sinking feeling settled in my stomach as I picked up the envelope, my fingers trembling slightly despite my best efforts to remain calm. Inside was a single sheet of expensive stationery, Marcus never used anything less, containing a brief message. Dinner with the Caldwells tonight. 8 p.m. Wear the blue dress. Remember to smile. No please. No love you. Just instructions, as if I were one of his employees rather than his wife. I crumpled the note in my fist, the familiar ache of disappointment spreading through my chest. What had I expected? A love letter? A sweet sentiment? After 3 years, you'd think I'd have learned. The blue dress hung in my closet like a uniform. Marcus had selected it himself, along with most of my public appearance wardrobe. The perfect shade to complement his power ties, the perfect cut to showcase my body without being inappropriate for a corporate wife. The perfect costume for the role I was expected to play. As I slipped it on, I caught my reflection in the full-length mirror. Olivia Harrington, 29, wife of Marcus Harrington, up-and-coming executive at Westfield Financial. I looked exactly as I was supposed to, elegant, poised, presentable. The woman staring back at me was a stranger. When had I become this person? This carefully curated accessory to my husband's ambitions? My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus, "Don't forget to pick up my dry cleaning before the dinner." No please there either. I texted back a simple okay and dropped the phone into my purse. As I did, my fingers brushed against a folded piece of paper I didn't recognize. Curious, I pulled it out and unfolded it. It was a printout of an email, clearly not meant for my eyes. From Marcus Harrington. To Richard Caldwell. Subject, tonight's dinner. Richard. Looking forward to dinner tonight. I'll bring Olivia, as discussed. She's been properly briefed and will play her part perfectly. I trust this arrangement will satisfy your concerns about my family stability before we finalize the partnership. The contract we discussed is agreeable. 3 more years should be sufficient for my career trajectory, and the compensation package for Olivia upon dissolution is generous enough to ensure compliance. Best regards. Marcus. I read the email twice, 3 times, my hands shaking more violently with each pass. Contract? Dissolution? Compensation package? A strange calm washed over me as the pieces clicked into place. The loveless marriage. The rigid expectations. The constant reminders of how fortunate I was to be Mrs. Harrington. My marriage wasn't a relationship, it was a business arrangement. And I had never seen the terms. Whoever had slipped this into my purse had done me an enormous favor. But why now? And who? I glanced at my watch. 5 hours until dinner. 5 hours to decide how to respond to the revelation that my entire marriage was a lie. I could confront Marcus immediately, but what would that accomplish? He'd explain it away, convince me I was overreacting, that this was simply business language for a personal matter. No. For once, I needed to think strategically. Like Marcus would. I smoothed out the email, took a photo with my phone, then carefully returned it to my purse. Whatever game was being played, I had just been dealt a new hand. And it was time I learned how to play. The Caldwells' home was exactly what I expected, a modernist mansion in the most exclusive neighborhood, with art that screamed we have money but don't know what to do with it. I'd been to dozens of these dinners, meeting hundreds of these people. They all blurred together after a while. Marcus's hand rested possessively at the small of my back as we were led through the foyer. To anyone watching, we were the perfect couple, handsome, successful husband and his devoted, beautiful wife. "Remember," he whispered, "Richard's wife collects antique jewelry. Ask her about it." Another stage direction for my performance. "Of course," I replied, my voice honey-sweet. "And you remember to laugh at his aviation stories even though you've heard them all before." Marcus's eyes narrowed slightly at my tone before his practiced smile returned. "Just follow my lead tonight. The Caldwell partnership is crucial. Isn't it always?" I murmured as we entered the dining room. Richard Caldwell was exactly as Marcus had described him, mid-50s, silver-haired, with the confident demeanor of someone who'd never worried about money a day in his life. His wife Elaine was a surprise, though. Younger than him by at least 15 years, sharp-eyed and observant. Not the trophy wife I'd been led to expect. As Marcus launched into his well-rehearsed networking mode, I found myself studying Elaine more closely. There was something familiar about her, though I couldn't place where I might have seen her before. "Olivia, isn't it?" Her voice startled me from my thoughts. "Why don't you help me bring in the appetizers?" In the kitchen, away from our husbands, Elaine's posture changed. The perfect hostess smile dropped, replaced by something more genuine but harder to read. "So," she said, arranging canapés on a silver tray, "how long have you known?" "Known what?" I kept my voice neutral, though my heart rate doubled. "About the contract." She didn't look up from her task. "The arrangement between you and Marcus." My breath caught. "I don't know what you're talking about." Finally, she looked up, her eyes piercing mine. "Yes, you do. I saw your face when you walked in. It's the same look I had 5 years ago when I found out about my own arrangement with Richard." The tray of appetizers forgotten, I stared at her. "You too?" She nodded. "Why do you think I wanted to meet you?" "The men, they all talk. They think we don't know, or don't care to know." Richard told Marcus about our arrangement, and Marcus clearly liked the template. My mind raced. Was it you who slipped the email into my purse?" A small smile played at the corners of her mouth. "Let's just say I believe women should make informed decisions about their own lives. Something our husbands apparently disagree with." "How did you find out?" "About your own arrangement, I mean." Richard's assistant left a contract draft on the printer. "Very careless." Her smile turned brittle. 3-year term, renewable based on performance, with a confidentiality clause and generous severance upon termination. "Like a job contract," I said, the words bitter on my tongue. "Exactly like a job contract. We're employees, Olivia. Highly paid ones, but employees nonetheless." She lifted the tray. "The question is, what are you going to do about it?" "What did you do?" Her laugh was soft but held no humor. "I renegotiated my terms." Before I could ask what she meant, she was gliding back to the dining room, the perfect hostess once more. Throughout dinner, I played my part flawlessly, laughing at the right jokes, asking Elaine about her jewelry collection, touching Marcus's arm affectionately when the conversation called for it. All the while, my mind was calculating, planning. "Your wife is delightful," Richard told Marcus as we sipped after-dinner drinks in the living room. "You're a lucky man." "I know," Marcus replied, squeezing my hand. Finding Olivia was the best business decision I ever made. He laughed as if it were a joke. Richard laughed too. Even Elaine chuckled politely. I smiled and took another sip of my bourbon, letting the burn in my throat fuel the fire building inside me. Business decision. Marcus had never spoken a truer word. The drive home was silent, save for Marcus's occasional comment about how well the evening had gone. "Richard's practically ready to sign," he said, satisfaction evident in his voice. "You did well tonight, Olivia." "Thank you," I replied mechanically. "Always happy to help advance your career." If he noticed the edge in my voice, he didn't show it. That's what makes us such a good team. We each know our roles. Roles. As if we were actors in a play of his creation. "And what exactly is my role, Marcus?" I turned to look at him, studying his profile in the dim light of the car. He frowned slightly. "You know what I mean. I handle the business side, you handle the social side. It's worked well for us so far." "Has it?" I asked softly. "Of course it has." He glanced at me briefly before returning his attention to the road. "Look at where we are now compared to 3 years ago. The house, the lifestyle, my position at the firm. We're right on track." "On track for what?" His frown deepened. "What's gotten into you tonight?" I turned to look out the window, watching the expensive homes of our neighborhood flash by. "Nothing. Just curious about the grand plan I'm apparently a part of but have never been consulted on." "Olivia." His voice took on the patronizing tone I'd grown to hate. "You knew what this marriage was about from the beginning. Don't act like this is some revelation." Did I? Perhaps on some level I had known. The whirlwind courtship, the prenuptial agreement I'd barely read, the way Marcus had pursued me so determinedly after meeting me at that charity gala. I'd been flattered, overwhelmed by his attention, dazzled by the lifestyle he offered. But I'd believed there was genuine affection beneath it all. I'd told myself the love would grow with time. What a fool I'd been. "You're right," I said finally. "No revelation here." He seemed relieved by my acquiescence, reaching over to pat my hand. "Good. Now, I have to go to Chicago next week for a conference. I've already had Caroline book your ticket. The CEO's wife will be hosting a luncheon for the executive spouses." Caroline. His assistant. The one who coordinated my schedule as if I were just another of his work commitments. "I can't go," I said suddenly. "What?" The sharp edge in his voice told me how unexpected my refusal was. "I have plans. The charity auction for the children's hospital. I'm on the committee, remember? I told you about it weeks ago." He waved a dismissive hand. "Cancel it. This conference is important." "And the children's hospital isn't?" I challenged. "That's not what I said." His knuckles whitened as he gripped the steering wheel. "But this is about my career, Olivia. Our future." I almost laughed. Our future. As if I had any say in it. "I made a commitment," I insisted. "I'm not canceling." He shot me an incredulous look as we pulled into our driveway. "We'll discuss this later," he said, his tone making it clear the discussion would be brief and end with my capitulation, as always. But not this time. As we entered the house, I headed straight for the stairs, intent on removing the beautiful blue dress that suddenly felt like a straitjacket. "Olivia," Marcus called after me. "We're not done talking about this." I paused on the stairs, looking back at him. "I think we are. I'm not going to Chicago." I have my own commitments. His eyes narrowed dangerously. What's gotten into you today? Nothing, I replied calmly. I'm just honoring a prior commitment. Like any professional would do. I continued up the stairs before he could respond, my heart pounding but my resolve strengthening with each step. In our bedroom, I unzipped the blue dress and let it fall to the floor, kicking it aside rather than hanging it up carefully as I normally would. In the walk-in closet, I stared at the rows of clothing, all selected or approved by Marcus for various occasions. Business dinners. Charity galas. Weekend brunches with his colleagues. At the back, rarely touched, were the few items I'd brought into the marriage, clothes from my life before Marcus. I pulled out an old sweater and jeans, relishing the softness of well-worn fabric against my skin. When Marcus entered the bedroom, he found me sitting cross-legged on the bed in my comfortable clothes, laptop open, focused on the screen. "What are you doing?" he asked, eyeing my outfit with disapproval. "Research," I replied without looking up. "On what?" "Contract law." He stilled, and I felt his eyes boring into me. "For the children's hospital auction?" His voice was carefully controlled. "No," I said, finally meeting his gaze. "For me." Understanding dawned on his face, followed quickly by a flash of alarm that he masked almost instantly. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't you?" I reached into my purse and pulled out the folded email, holding it up. 3 more years should be sufficient for my career trajectory, and the compensation package for Olivia upon dissolution is generous enough to ensure compliance. I quoted his words back to him. "Sound familiar?" The color drained from his face. "Where did you get that?" "Does it matter?" "What matters is that I have it." I closed my laptop. "So, when were you planning to tell me about our expiration date? Or were you just going to hand me divorce papers and a check in 3 years? "Olivia, that email, it's not what it looks like." His recovery was impressive, voice steady, expression earnest. This was the Marcus who closed million-dollar deals, who could convince anyone of anything. But I wasn't just anyone anymore. "Then what is it?" I challenged. "Please, enlighten me." He ran a hand through his perfectly styled hair, a rare gesture of frustration. "It's just business language. Richard responds to that kind of talk. It doesn't mean anything." "So there's no contract? No dissolution planned? No compensation package for me?" I pressed. He hesitated just a fraction too long. "Of course not." "You're lying," I said softly. "You've been lying since the day we met." "That's not true," he insisted, moving to sit beside me on the bed. I shifted away, maintaining distance. "Olivia, I care about you. Our marriage is important to me. As a business asset," I finished for him. "Let's be honest for once, Marcus. That's all I am to you, a line item on your career advancement plan. That's not fair. Isn't it? When was the last time we had sex that wasn't scheduled around your ovulation calendar app? When was the last time you asked me about my dreams, my goals? When was the last time you looked at me like a woman you desired instead of a box you'd checked?" His silence was answer enough. "I want to see it," I said finally. "See what?" "The contract. Our contract. I want to read the terms of my own marriage." He stood abruptly. "There's no contract, Olivia. You're being ridiculous. Then you won't mind if I call Richard Caldwell and ask him about it." I reached for my phone. "Don't." His command was sharp. After a moment, he sighed. "Fine. There's an agreement, but it's not what you think. Show me. It's at the office. Then we'll go to the office. I stood up, grabbing my purse. Now? It's almost midnight. Yes, now. You have a key, don't you? Isn't that what important executives have, 24-hour access to their offices? His jaw tightened, but he nodded curtly. Fine. Let's go. The drive to his office was tense and silent. The Westfield Financial Building was mostly dark, save for security lighting and the occasional window where some ambitious soul was working late. Marcus led me through the quiet halls to his corner office, unlocking the door and flipping on the lights. I'd been here before, of course, for company parties, to bring him lunch, to pick him up for events. But I'd never been here like this, as an adversary rather than a supportive wife. He went to the wall safe hidden behind an abstract painting, a safe I hadn't known existed, and entered a combination. From inside, he withdrew a thick document folder. Here, he said, placing it on his desk. But I'm telling you, it's not what you think. I opened the folder and began to read. It was exactly what I thought. A detailed contract outlining the terms of our marriage, duration, initially 5 years, renewable in 3-year increments, expectations, social appearances, family planning timeline, appropriate behavior, and compensation, monthly allowance during the marriage, lump sum payment upon divorce, scaled based on duration and performance. There was even a performance metrics section, with bullet points including positive impression on colleagues and superiors, appropriate appearance and deportment, and successful pregnancy and child-rearing. My hands trembled as I flipped through the pages. You signed this? I asked, my voice barely audible. Yes, Marcus admitted. And so did you. I looked up sharply. I never signed this. He reached for the folder, turning to the last page. There was my signature, dated 3 weeks before our wedding. This isn't. I didn't. I struggled to find words. It was included in the prenup paperwork, he explained, his tone matter-of-fact. Page 17, if I recall correctly. You signed it, Olivia. I remembered the thick stack of documents his lawyer had presented me with, the hurried explanations, Marcus's assurances that it was all standard procedure. I'd trusted him and signed where indicated, barely skimming the dense legal text. This is fraud, I whispered. You tricked me. I did nothing of the sort, he countered. You had every opportunity to read what you were signing. It's not my fault if you chose not to. The cold calculation in his eyes made my stomach turn. This was the real Marcus, not the charming man who'd swept me off my feet, but the ruthless executive who saw everything and everyone as a means to an end. Why? I asked finally. Why go through all this? Why not just find someone you actually loved? Love? He let out a short laugh. Love doesn't build careers, Olivia. Strategic partnerships do. I needed a wife who fit a certain profile, attractive, educated, socially adept, from a good family. You were perfect on paper. And you seemed amenable. Amenable, I repeated, the word like ash in my mouth. Yes. Eager to please. Impressionable. He shrugged. It's worked out well for both of us, hasn't it? You've got the lifestyle many women would kill for. I've got the perfect corporate wife. It's a fair exchange. And when you've reached whatever arbitrary career goal you've set? When I'm no longer useful? Then we part ways amicably, and you receive the compensation outlined in Section 7. He said it so matter-of-factly, as if discussing the terms of a car lease rather than the dissolution of a marriage. And if I refuse? If I walk away now? His expression hardened. Then you get nothing. Section 9.3 Early termination by the wife without cause results in forfeiture of all future compensation. Without cause, I repeated. And what constitutes cause? Infidelity on my part, physical abuse, failure to provide the agreed-upon lifestyle. He ticked off the items on his fingers. The standard things. But emotional manipulation isn't on that list? Fraud? Treating your wife like a business acquisition? Those are subjective terms with no legal standing, he dismissed. Olivia, be reasonable. You've had a good life with me. You will continue to have a good life. In a few years, you'll have a child, financial security, and eventually, your freedom, with a hefty payment to start your new life. Most divorce settlements aren't nearly as generous. I stared at him, this stranger I'd shared a bed with for 3 years. Did you ever care for me at all? For the first time, he hesitated, a flicker of something, regret? Guilt, crossing his face. I selected you for logical reasons, but yes, I've grown fond of you. You've been an excellent wife. Fond. Like a favored pet or a reliable appliance. I see, I said, closing the folder. Thank you for your honesty. He seemed relieved by my calm response. So you understand now? We can continue as before? No, I said simply. We can't. His expression darkened. Don't be foolish, Olivia. You signed a contract. Yes, I did. I stood, gathering my purse. But contracts can be renegotiated. What are you saying? I'm saying that if you want me to continue playing the role of Mrs. Harrington, the terms need to change. He studied me for a long moment, calculation clear in his eyes. What kind of changes? I'll have my lawyer draft them. His eyebrows shot up. Your lawyer? Yes, Marcus. My lawyer. I'll be in touch. With that, I walked out of his office, head held high, leaving him staring after me in stunned silence. For the first time in our marriage, I had surprised him. And I was just getting started. I didn't go home that night. Instead, I checked into a hotel using the emergency credit card Marcus had given me, a card I'd never used until now. It seemed fitting that his money should fund the first night of my rebellion. Sleep eluded me as I replayed the evening's revelations over and over. Every interaction with Marcus over the past 3 years took on new significance, every decision, every suggestion about my appearance or behavior now painfully transparent in its purpose. By morning, I had a plan, or at least the beginnings of one. My first call was to Elaine Caldwell. Her secretary initially tried to block me, but I insisted it was a personal matter regarding the dinner party. Olivia, Elaine's voice was carefully neutral when she came on the line. What can I do for you? I need your help, I said simply. Or rather, I need the name of your lawyer. A pause, then a small laugh. I see you've been busy since our dinner. Very. Good. The word was warm with approval. My lawyer is Alexandra Vega at Palmer & Klein. Tell her I sent you. She specializes in unique marital arrangements. My next call was to Alexandra Vega's office. By some stroke of luck, or perhaps Elaine's influence, she agreed to see me that same day. Alexandra's office was nothing like the sleek, intimidating spaces of Marcus's law firm. It was comfortable but professional, with walls lined with books rather than awards or ego-stroking photos with celebrities. Alexandra herself was a revelation, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s with silver-streaked hair and a no-nonsense demeanor that immediately put me at ease. "So," she said after I'd explained my situation, "you've discovered your marriage is a corporate merger rather than a love match." "Yes. And Elaine Caldwell referred you." She leaned back in her chair. "Interesting. You helped her with her arrangement?" Alexandra's smile was enigmatic. "I've helped several women in similar situations. Silicon Valley and Wall Street think they invented the corporate marriage, but it's one of the oldest institutions in the world. Only the paperwork has changed." She picked up the copy of my marriage contract that I'd surreptitiously made in Marcus's office. "This is actually fairly standard as these things go. Not particularly generous, but not draconian either." "I didn't know I was signing it," I said, the admission painful. "He buried it in the prenup." "That's typically how it's done," she replied, unsurprised. "Men like your husband don't want to acknowledge that what they're doing is essentially purchasing a spouse." Her bluntness was refreshing after years of Marcus's careful manipulations. "So what are my options?" I asked. "That depends on what you want." She set down the contract. "Do you want out of the marriage? Or do you want better terms?" I hesitated. I don't know. I haven't had time to process everything." "Then let's start with what you don't want. Do you want to continue being a corporate accessory with no say in your own life?" "No." "Do you want to walk away with nothing after giving him 3 years of your life?" "Definitely not." "Do you want him to dictate your future, when you have children, where you live, how you behave?" "No." She nodded. "Now we're getting somewhere. Tell me, Olivia, what did you do before you became Mrs. Harrington?" "I was an art historian. I worked at the Henderson Gallery downtown." "And you gave that up when you married Marcus?" "He said it wasn't compatible with our social obligations." The words tasted bitter now. "And if you could go back to it? Or do something else entirely?" I considered the question. What would I do if I were truly free to choose? "I'd finish my doctorate," I said, surprising myself with the immediacy of the answer. "I was halfway through when I met Marcus. He convinced me to put it on hold for the wedding, and then, it just never seemed like the right time to go back." Alexandra made a note. "What else?" I'd like to travel. Not to corporate retreats or conferences, but to actually see art and history firsthand. I'd like to curate my own exhibitions. Maybe teach." The ideas came faster now, dreams I'd buried resurfacing. "Good." She made more notes. "Now, the most important question, do you want to stay married to Marcus?" Did I? My initial impulse was to say no, to run as far and as fast as possible. But 3 years was a significant investment. And there were practical considerations, finances, social connections, the life I'd built. Plus, there was something undeniably appealing about the idea of turning the tables on Marcus. "I'm not ready to make that decision yet," I said finally. "Fair enough." Alexandra closed her notebook. "Here's what I propose. We renegotiate your contract. New terms, new expectations, new benefits. We use the leverage of his deception to secure you a better position, whether you ultimately stay or go." What kind of leverage do I really have, though? He already admitted I signed the contract, even if I didn't know what I was signing. She smiled, a predatory gleam in her eye. "You'd be surprised what constitutes fraud in contract law, especially when one party deliberately obscures material facts from the other. Plus, there's the potential PR nightmare if this ever went public. Men like Marcus value their reputations above all else. So what now? Now, I draft a counterproposal. You go home. I'm not sure I can face him yet, I interrupted. You don't have to interact with him if you don't want to. But staying in a hotel on his dime gives him financial data on your movements. Go home, maintain the status quo on the surface, and let me handle the rest. As I left her office, I felt lighter than I had in years. I might still be trapped in a contract masquerading as a marriage, but for the first time, I was fighting back. And Marcus would never see it coming. When I returned home that evening, Marcus was waiting, a tumbler of bourbon in his hand, his third, judging by the glassy look in his eyes. Where have you been? He demanded. Out. I set my purse down calmly. Thinking. He studied me, clearly trying to gauge my emotional state. And? Have you calmed down? The condescension in his tone might have infuriated me before. Now it just confirmed everything I already knew about how he saw me. I'm perfectly calm, I assured him. I've been calm since I left your office last night. Good. He nodded, satisfied with his own assessment. Then we can put this unfortunate episode behind us and move forward. Move forward, I repeated. As in, continue with your plan? Chicago next week, the executive luncheon, the perfect corporate wife performing on command? His jaw tightened. Olivia, I've explained the situation. The contract is merely a formality. Our marriage is real. Is it? When was the last time you told me you loved me? Not in public, not for show, but privately, because you felt it? He opened his mouth, then closed it again. He couldn't remember, and neither could I. That's what I thought, I said softly. Love is overrated, he said finally. We have something more practical. More durable. A business arrangement. If you want to call it that, yes. I nodded. Fine. Then let's treat it like one. I'll fulfill my contractual obligations, starting with Chicago next week. Relief washed over his face. Thank you. I knew you'd be reasonable once you'd had time to think. But, I continued, I expect some adjustments to our arrangement moving forward. Wariness replaced relief. What kind of adjustments? For starters, I'll be returning to my doctoral program next semester. I've already looked into it, and I can resume where I left off. Olivia, be serious. You don't have time for that with our social calendar. I'll make time. You're fond of scheduling, Marcus. I'm sure we can work around my classes and research. His eyes narrowed. And what about our family planning timeline? Children require attention, Olivia. A doctoral program is hardly compatible with motherhood. Then we'll adjust the timeline. That's not how this works, he said, his voice hardening. You agreed to specific terms. Terms I didn't know I was agreeing to, I countered. But I'm not refusing to have children, Marcus. I'm simply adjusting the schedule. He set down his glass with deliberate care. And what other adjustments are you proposing? I want my own account. Not an allowance, not access to household funds, but my own separate account that you deposit funds into monthly. Funds that I control completely. His laugh was sharp. Absolutely not. What's to stop you from simply taking the money and leaving? The same thing that's stopping me now, the contract. I'd forfeit the final payment. But while I'm fulfilling my role, I should have financial autonomy. Is that all? His tone was sarcastic. No. I met his gaze steadily. I want honesty moving forward. No more hidden agendas, no more treating me like a child who can't be trusted with the truth. If this is a business arrangement, I deserve the professional courtesy of being kept informed. He studied me for a long moment, calculation clear in his eyes. And if I refuse these adjustments? Then I walk away now and take my chances in court. Your choice, Marcus. He laughed again, but it was strained. You're bluffing. You have no idea what you'd be giving up. Don't I? 3 more years of being managed, scheduled, and evaluated like an employee rather than a partner? 3 more years of pretending to be someone I'm not for people I don't care about? Tell me, Marcus, what exactly would I be giving up that I haven't already lost? The silence that stretched between us was charged with a new tension, the tension of shifting power dynamics. I'll think about it, he said finally. Good. I picked up my purse. Oh, and one more thing, I'll be taking the blue guest room until we sort this out. Good night, Marcus. I left him standing there, drink in hand, staring after me with an expression I'd never seen before, uncertainty. It looked good on him. The next morning, I woke to the sound of my phone buzzing. A text from Alexandra, counterproposal drafted. Can you meet at 2 p.m.? I responded quickly, yes. Thank you. As I got ready for the day, I heard Marcus moving around downstairs. By the time I came down, he was gone, but he'd left a note on the kitchen counter. Olivia, I've thought about your requests. We should discuss them tonight. Dinner at Maison, 7 p.m. Maison was one of the most expensive restaurants in the city, a place where Marcus took clients he needed to impress. The choice of venue was calculated. He was trying to remind me of the lifestyle he provided, the benefits of our arrangement. I smiled to myself. Predictable. The day passed in a blur of activity. The meeting with Alexandra left me feeling confident in my new path. The counter-proposal she drafted was brilliant, acknowledging the original contract but introducing significant amendments that would give me the autonomy and respect I deserved while still fulfilling the core obligations Marcus valued. He'll push back on the financial independence clause, Alexandra warned. Men like him equate money with control. Let him push, I replied. I won't budge on that point. By the time I arrived at Maison that evening, I felt prepared for whatever strategy Marcus might employ. I wore a dress he'd never seen before, one I'd purchased myself that morning, a deep burgundy that complemented my coloring perfectly without being the conservative blue he preferred. Marcus was already seated, nursing a glass of his favorite scotch. His eyebrows rose slightly at my appearance, but he stood to pull out my chair, ever the gentleman in public. You look different, he commented as I sat. Thank you, I replied, accepting the implied compliment rather than the potential criticism. I ordered the 09 Bordeaux. I know you like it. Another calculated move, reminding me of how well he knew my preferences, how attentive he could be when it suited his purposes. Perfect, I said, smiling politely as the sommelier poured. We made small talk through the appetizers, careful, distant conversation that could have been between business associates rather than spouses. It wasn't until our entrees arrived that Marcus finally broached the subject of our arrangement. I've considered your requests, he said, cutting into his steak with precise movements. I'm willing to accommodate your return to academia, within reason. The separate account, however, is out of the question. I sipped my wine, letting the silence stretch. That's unfortunate, I finally replied. Because it's non-negotiable for me. His fork paused halfway to his mouth. Olivia, be reasonable. I am being reasonable. I'm simply requesting the professional respect any business partner would receive. We're not business partners. We're married. Are we? Because according to the contract I never knew I signed, this is a time-limited arrangement with performance metrics and compensation packages. I set down my glass. You can't have it both ways, Marcus. Either we're partners, in which case I deserve autonomy, or this is a business arrangement, in which case I'm renegotiating my terms. You're overreacting, he insisted. Nothing has changed. Everything has changed. I pulled an envelope from my purse and placed it on the table between us. This is a counterproposal drafted by my lawyer. Review it with yours if you'd like, but those are my terms moving forward. The color drained from his face. Your lawyer? Alexandra Vega. She sends her regards. Understanding dawned in his eyes. Elaine Caldwell, he said. She did this. No, Marcus. You did this. Elaine simply showed me the truth. I stood, gathering my purse. I'll see you at home. Take your time with the proposal. But know this, I won't settle for less than what I deserve anymore. As I walked out of the restaurant, leaving him stunned at the table, I felt a sense of power I'd never experienced before. The game had changed. And this time, I was writing the rules.